So 1D&D. 1D&D has changed unarmed strikes, and what they've tried to do is streamline it and make it more consistent and easier to run. Like, that's essentially what they're trying to do. Okay, so a special attack like the grapple and the shove, they now work as an unarmed strike rather than using an ability check or a skill check as a contest. In the past, we'd use a contest. I can assure you that explaining to people how a contest works in Dungeons and Dragons confuses many people. Maybe not everybody, but I can assure you it confuses a lot of people. So what they've done is tried to make this action super simple, which I think is awesome. Have they made the right choice? That's a different question. Okay, I'll get back to that. Escaping a grapple is no longer an action. It no longer requires your action. So it requires an action to actually put the grapple on, but to escape the grapple, and most of the time it is going to be your characters escaping from a monster's grapple rather than the other way around. Okay, this actually makes the grappling process a lot weaker. It makes no sense to me, frankly, because I know getting out of a grapple is actually very difficult. Once you are grappled, it's actually very difficult. You probably will not have time or energy to do very much of anything else other than, I got free. The reason it exists is to eliminate that action, is that people want to be able to escape the grapple and then make an attack because they feel like they have wasted their turn. This is catering to the population who play mainly as characters and aren't dungeon masters. And frankly, I think this is, again, going to be more of a nerf for monsters, making monsters easier to deal with, particularly when they have a grapple aspect to them. Okay. The grapple condition now imposes disadvantage on attack rolls. Thank God for that, because so many people were so confused why there was actually a grapple condition and a restrained condition. I consider this a refinement. It's welcome, in my opinion. I'm very biased with regard to this. Only do I enjoy the idea of doing this if the restrained condition gets deleted completely. Like, get rid of it. Frankly, I think a better choice with regard to the grappled condition is to shove it down the toilet and flush it away. I would replace the grappled condition with just the restrained condition. Anything that the grappled condition does, the restrained condition does, and it would reduce so much confusion. You do not need to have so many conditions. It's not necessary. It would actually be a much smarter way of dealing with the game. Now, the new mechanic for shove and grapple makes defenses more dependent, or your defenses far more dependent on dexterity scores or modifiers and your armor class. Your armor class becomes significantly more important because of this, right? Because now we're attacking armor class rather than dealing with a contest. Well, the issue is grapple and shove using an attack roll against armor class means that, commoners and ogres have essentially a very similar armor class, yet their strength and ability to grapple is probably very different. Very, very different. I think this is where the hole lies with using armor class as our target. Okay, it might in fact be better to use a strength saving throw to engage in a grapple or a shove, and to break it, a strength saving throw to break it. This sort of reflects the fact that grappling and shoving requires physical power and strength, and it also, grappling is one of those things where it's actually not just strength. If you have ever done any martial arts, you know that grappling involves the combination of strength, dexterity, and training. In real life, that's how it works, plus surprise, because it's very hard to put a grapple onto somebody who knows it's coming. Usually you lose that battle unless you know what you're doing. Surprise is very important, otherwise it's probably not going to work. You can't capture every aspect of real life in the grapple, frankly. I was actually thinking, after I had finished my notes, that one of the best ways to deal with the grapple might be to choose between making a strength saving throw or a dexterity saving throw. Because if you've ever fought somebody who's really strong, it is possible for somebody who's very small and weak, but very fast, to grapple somebody and tie them up. This has happened to me when dealing with women and small children. So I think that might actually be a solution. You pick whichever one is the highest, because somebody who's very strong will rely on their strength when they're grappling, and somebody who's very quick will not be relying on their strength. They'll be relying on their dexterity, their speed. And that's probably a better way of addressing the grapple. And again, we're not having to deal with the complexity of a contest. We're only dealing with a DC, and it's a saving throw. And that's it. I still think you need to use your action to escape a grapple. I think that's probably needs to stay. But that's just me. Now, I've heard people say, well, Fred, here's the problem. What do you do with athletics if you're not using it for grappling and shoving these special attacks? Well, yeah, you've eliminated some of the combat aspects, but D&D is not just combat, is it? The athletic skill is actually used for jumping. Not always, but certainly for some jumps where you don't actually get like automatic success. There are situations where if your strength is 15 and the gap you're jumping across and you have a running jump and it's 15 feet, you don't have to roll any dice. But if you don't have a strength of 15 and you're crossing a space that's 15 feet, your dungeon master is probably going to use some sort of dice check, right? So we use it for jumping. We definitely use it for climbing. We definitely use it for swimming. And sports activities don't come up that often, but they do exist. They do come into play. Arm wrestling, if you're having an arm wrestle. Lifting objects, though. It actually makes sense that we don't just use a strength check to lift something, that we actually use athletics. Because if you've ever done any powerlifting or weight training, you know that knowing how to lift something heavy is part of the battle. It's not just about physical strength, it's about how your technique, and athletics would reflect that far more, right? So athletics is not a dead skill. In fact, I would say out of the skills, perception would be at the top, followed by athletics, because you're going to use it a lot. It will come up. It just might not come up in combat that much. Yep. So that is what I thought I would present with regard to the unarmed strike. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done with the unarmed strike for it to work in its current form, because right now, I think they're on the right track. They just haven't hit the right medium. Yeah.